I think that's a good point. I always talk about this a lot. I know Zolo hear me, everybody up here hear me speak about this a lot. The New Jim Crow. If y'all never read The New Jim Crow, read The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. You'll understand what's going on with the Mike Browns, the Ronnie Mans, the Alton Sterlings, but also the ones that's in prison with excessively long sentences, or innocent prisoners in there. You dig what I'm saying? Or some of the supermaxes. You dig what I'm saying? Why they're trying to and I come at a time when these brothers, when they were struggling and stuff, they brought about them supermaxes as a repressive tool against people like them. So people like me would never come about to even come across these individuals. So by the time I come to prison, the majority of the people in that prison population was unconscious. We deal with a lot of lumpings that really was about gang banging, drugs, and stabbing each other or beating up each other over commissary little, you know what I mean? Because the supermaxes was a way to have a prison within inside a prison to neutralize their influences, so they would never be able to come across people like me. But I broke through somehow, you know what I mean? And the New Jim Crow, if you ain't never read that, because that when she wrote that book, that really set the stage for a lot of the things that's been rolling since then. The 60s was a time when this government saw a real revolution could happen in this country. Blacks, brown, Native American, indigenous people was all organizing on different women. You dig what I'm saying? Students. The majority of the people back then were students. Like Zolo was talking about, the SDS, SNCC, the Black Panther Party. Most people don't realize the Black Panther Party, most of them was under 25. They would, like I said, Fred Hampton was 21 years old when they assassinated him. So some of the things that they did, we have to give them credit for being young people that took a proactive approach about changing society. But we got to also remember that the government played a role in bringing down those movements because a lot of them were unprepared. They were not as well organized that they needed to be. They didn't know about COINTELPRO. They didn't know that the government was going to use agents and send them in there to set them up with drug crimes and stuff like that just to go and raid a Panther house. They didn't know that Fred Hampton didn't know his bodyguard was working with the police to get him assassinated. You dig what I'm saying? These are all things that destroyed the movement back in the 60s. But we are, you know, especially like me, because I'm a little bit younger, came in and learned from their experience and stuff. You dig what I'm saying? But we have a wealth of knowledge today that they didn't have. We can learn from the past and not make the same mistakes that they did. You dig what I'm saying? Because we know the government is probably even watching them. I don't know, you know, but this is the realities. But because of the 60s showed us the government don't like Martin Luther King's, they don't like Malcolm X's, and they definitely don't like Black Panther type of people. You know what I'm saying? And their response to that was the war on drugs. H.R. Heidemann said, she talks about this in the New Jim Crow. H.R. Heidemann was in the Nixon administration. He said, we have to target the black population without it looking like this is what we're doing. And this is where they came up with the war on drugs. You know, Nixon was the one that actually called upon it, but it was actually went in effect in 1982 under Ronald Reagan. Think about this. So Ronald Reagan calls a war on drugs. At this time, drug crime was going down. Down. Violent crime was going up. So when he was going around to the police chiefs and talking about this, they was looking at him like, why would we be investing money on this when this is not a problem? Well, Ronald Reagan and all his delegates, that ambassadors he sent to talk to these police chiefs, they said, hey, we'll give you federal funding, build up your drug task force. They looking at him, they're like, okay, so even though drug crime ain't a problem, you gonna give us federal funding and military equipment to build up our drug task force? Think about this, people. This is where policies are set to start to repress different oppressed nationalities for political reasons. You know what I'm saying? Then we got, at this same time, we got Freeway Rick Ross, drug kingpin, flooded our community with drugs. They bringing in drugs on military bases. You know, Danelio Blanco was his contact man that was working with the CIA. All of this is common knowledge. You can watch this on American Gangster or whatever now. But we got a lot of people in prison for this. Why? Because they want to prevent Martin Luther King's, Malcolm X's, Fred Hampton's, George Jackson's, Huey P. Newton's for coming out again, because they felt like if they could inundate our community with drugs, not only will we be strung out on it, but they can also come in here as a occupying force and have reasons to come in here as a Gestapo tactics against our community. You dig what I'm saying? Lock us away for decades, for life sentences and stuff. So this is a policy that was enacted on black and brown people because they didn't want us to organize against this government and fight for the people. Not just black people, not just brown people, not just Native American people, humanity as a whole. Because this is what we was doing. We was organizing with people across racial lines, across class lines, that was fighting for humanity as a whole. And we was thinking about it internationally. We're out here fighting these wars for who? For the same slave masters that oppress us over in China, and Russia, and the United States, and Brazil, and Europe. We're all being oppressed by the same slave masters. You dig what I'm saying? This is why we see the people rising up across the world now, because a lot of us are waking up. We saw how these governments have repressed us. But this is why I always talk about we have to understand what the state is. If you ever get a chance, because y'all, I'm guessing a lot of y'all still are going to college and stuff like this, read Frederick Engels, The Origin of the Family, Private Property, and the State. When you understand, a lot of people watch the movie The Matrix, when Morpheus come and give Neo the red pill. Well, the red pill is understanding what the state is. That's the material basis of what we're really fighting against. The state ain't always existed. When did the state come about? If we understand when the state evolved in human civilization, we'll understand what is the true nature of the state and what is our real relationship to it. We'll understand our real relationship to the police and the prison system, because they're not here to serve and protect you. It never was about, when the state evolved, it was about establishing first two things: a class dictatorship over the oppressed population. So if you're the slave-owning class, the main population to repress and oppress was the slaves themselves. If you was under feudalism, the state was designed to maintain the dominance of that feudal class over the peasantry. Under capitalism, it's about dominating the working class population and the basic masses. That was the nature. That's why the state came about. But it also came about for a second reason: democracy only amongst the ruling class. So the slave owners, they came together and set policies, not for the slaves, for them. So domestic and foreign policy was designed for their democracy, to say what our nation is going to be fighting for domestically is going to be A, B, C, X, Y, and Z. So if anything trickled down to the lower class population, it was only because secondarily, it was not really thought of. Democracy under capitalism is the same thing. You dig what I'm saying? But it's disguised, because bourgeoisie democracy has a way to disguise its character of the state, where under slavery you can see it more visibly and stuff. You dig what I'm saying? So I would encourage everybody, read Frederick Engels, The Origin of the Family, Private Property, and Estate, to understand our true relationship to this system and all of its institutions. They was never designed to be in our interests. These politicians, these judges, the police, they're here to repress us and to prevent us from rising up. That's their main thing.